Welcome back. Prime Minister and Minister for Finance Alan Chastanet has revealed that government will continue economic support efforts amid the COVID crisis. However, a new approach will be taken this time around. He says targeted support will be offered on a sectoral basis. The Prime Minister underscored that the goal is and always has been to get people back to work rather than continuing direct and wide-scale financial support.
With the end of the economic stimulus program, many have questioned whether there is anything in the pipeline for the thousands who are still unemployed or operate in a sector which has been significantly impacted by COVID-19. As he addressed questions from the local press, Prime Minister Alan Chastanet made it abundantly clear that it is not the government's intention to extend any widespread financial assistance programs.
We knew that we could not sustain that for a long period of time. And so therefore, learning to coexist with COVID, which meant that we had to be able to open up our economies and get traction on seeing the recovery of our economies. The goal has always been that we can't afford to continue the income support program through the government, but if we can get the economy to recover and people now start getting re-employed, that there would be this combination.
He stressed that economic support is a broad term and is not limited to cash handouts. The Prime Minister further revealed that the government will take a more targeted approach in future endeavors, offering various forms of support to sectors determined to be most at risk.
The banks initially gave a blanket waiver of moratoriums for the first 6 months. They have now extended it for another year, but instead of being a blanket moratorium, it's now going to be targeted to those persons that need it. The government is doing the same thing. So instead of a blanket social and economic stabilization program, we're getting the economy to go back up and then continue to provide support to those persons, those vulnerable persons that are still not seeing that level of recovery. So your vendors, your taxi drivers, your attractions in particular, that while tourism is opening up, it really is in a very controlled manner.
Director of Finance Esther Rigobert outlined how people would be identified under this new approach.
Persons on the poverty list, persons living with disability, persons living with HIV, and so on. So this has been rolled out, and we estimate about 5,000 persons will benefit from this form of income support. Additionally, we have other measures to provide relief to small businesses. So we've given some assistance to Bell Fund, and as well as, like I mentioned earlier, your SLDB. That support to small businesses, micro, not just established firms, but it could be a household, an individual wanting to start a small business.
For more information on the government's approach to economic support, members of the public are advised to access the Economic Recovery Plan available on govt.lc. Jacques Whidding, Hot 7 News.
St. Lucia extended a welcome to the world's largest travel and tourism company as TUI Airways touched down at Uanora International Airport on Tuesday. This is the airline's first flight to St. Lucia since the closure of the borders to commercial airlines on the 25th of March 2020 due to COVID-19.
Tuesday, October 27th, marked the return of TUI to St. Lucia. TUI's winter weekly direct flights from London Gatwick to Uanora International Airport will run through to March 2021. This is the fourth consecutive year that the travel company has flown to the island, showing its commitment and confidence in the tourism authorities and people of St. Lucia. By continuing to manage COVID-19 protocols, St. Lucia has been included in TUI's long-haul program for 2020-2021 as one of the only 3 Caribbean destinations featured. As St. Lucia continues its phased responsible reopening, 182 passengers and crew members from the UK on TUI's flight TOM24 were welcome at 1610 AST with a full complement of safety protocols in place, including the wearing of masks, screening at a nurse's station, verification of travel documents, and sanitizing of hands and luggage.
We really want to say thank you to our partners for their commitment in maintaining the COVID-19 protocols. We know that it is not an easy task, as it has not been our nature, but these are really the reasons why our airlines continue to choose and support St. Lucia. And for TUI, year after year, The continued commitment, even through the challenging times, speaks volumes. Our international visitors have also come to understand the importance of the health and safety measures that are being put in place, as well as for our returning nationals. And we know that these are the reasons that they continue to choose St. Lucia, because they feel safe. And of course, when they are in St. Lucia, there are protocols that will be followed that will also ensure that they too can have a good time, all while observing the health and safety put in place by our health authorities.
Georges says that the TUI services several hotels in St. Lucia.
With the return of 2-8 means that many hotels are opening up again. Many of our certified properties will be back in operation, and that also means that staff will be back on the job. Some of the resorts have already indicated to us that come next week, they will be operating at 100% occupancy, and some of these hotels that are serviced by TUI include the Royalton, Hideaway at Royalton, Mystique by Royalton, Rendezvous, Bay Gardens Hotel, Bay Gardens Beach Resort, Harbour Club, Bellevue, Sugar Beach, Starfish, and the Body Holiday.
A second weekly flight begins from 5th November from Manchester in the UK, serving the north of the country. For more information about St. Lucia's COVID-19 response, all protocols and details of requirements prior to entry, please visit www.stlucia.org/COVID-19. Reporting for the Hot 7 News, I am Novita Emmanuel Green.
As certified properties continue to reopen, some reaching as much as 80% capacity in the month of November, Prime Minister Alan Chastanet notes that some airlines have been able to surpass pre-COVID figures for demand to fly into St. Lucia.
The new hotel, Royalton, started receiving guests yesterday. It's going to be 80% occupancy for the month of November. Sandals, opening up the 2 properties in a very difficult time, re-employing persons, bus drivers, farmers. 75% occupancy for the month of October. American Airlines flew at 76% occupancy for the month of October. British Airways now has added double the amount of airline seats that were coming in pre-COVID.
The Prime Minister says that with the recent spike in COVID-19 cases, it is important to note that only 1 case has been imported since the resumption of tourism activity.
To have 16,000 arrivals and only 1 person test positive 2 days after arriving really is a testament to the diligence that people are conducting the work in. All of the security people at the airport, the taxi drivers, bus drivers, thousands of people who are making this thing work. And I think that the director is 100% correct. Sometimes we depend on outside persons to acknowledge the success that we've had. The CMO and her team, world class.
The Prime Minister says the road to recovery will not be without bumps along the way, but he has assured that St. Lucia is indeed on the right path. The Antiguan government has indicated that it is committed to providing funding to see to it that Liat is back in the air. Here in St. Lucia, the bargaining agent for Liat workers, the National Workers Union, says it is still in dialogue with the administrators of the regional carrier about payment for the many St. Lucians who lost their jobs due to COVID-19.
Earlier this month, the Gaston Brown administration borrowed US $15 million to invest in the regional air carrier Liat. Currently, all Liat flights have been suspended as the company is now under administration due to the mass amount of debt it has incurred, compounded by the COVID-19 situation. Hundreds of workers had to be laid off due to the company not being able to meet its financial obligations. According to Brown, the funds borrowed would be given to assist the administrator in the objective of getting Liat back in the air. Here in St. Lucia, Senior Industrial Specialist at the National Workers Union, Lawrence Poyot, says if this is achieved, the NWU will be on board as it would mean jobs for some of its membership.
Well, if a decision is made to recommence flights, we have the opinion that it's a good thing and it may create a few jobs. It would not create all the jobs that existed in Liat prior to it going into administration. But if some jobs are created as a result of Liat providing services again, the union would be happy to know that at least some of the Liat employees would be re-employed.
The catch to the Antiguan government investing so heavily into the company at this stage, however, is that if the deal falls through or does not work, Antigua will be first to be repaid in the grand scheme of things. Poyot has weighed in on the matter.
LIAT is a regional institution, and we expect that if payments are made, everybody would be treated equally. We don't anticipate, or we would hate to see a situation where governments are seeing about their own employees, to the extent that one government would say that they're not paying a particular group because they're not nationals. However, if it comes to a situation where governments are seeing about their own employees, we may very well call upon our government to see how best they could assist.
So where exactly are negotiations and consultations with the regional air carrier?
We are at a stage now where discussions are ongoing with the administrator, the management of LIAT, and the employees. It is expected that we would meet with the administrator sometime later this week to continue discussions. Our principal concern at this stage is how do we secure the employees' entitlements. We have communicated our position to the management of LIAT and to the administrator.
A meeting is expected to be convened later this week in order to continue discussions with the LIAT workers, the administrator, and the NWU to further discuss the fate of St. Lucian LIAT employees. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzaga.
Stay with us. We hit the streets when we return.